Welcome back to Movie Battleground. Yes, the champion is actually main judging, so I don't know if I'm gonna turn it into my favor because I don't want to face one of these guys. No, it's gonna be a great match today. We got Brian Michaels and we got Michael Wood. It's two laid back competitors basically. So I'm excited to see when the actual match starts how they handle each other. And who gets fired up first? That's the question. But I can't do this by myself. I got two great judges with me today. I got the one, he wears a terrible baseball hat most times, but it's James White. How are you doing, James? And yo,
Spin that bad boy around.
50 wins.
I can't say anything about my hat. We haven't won since I was born in 1983, so it's been a rough go of it for my entire life. I'm excited to be here. It's going to be fun to judge these two guys. I'm obviously going to vote against Brian at all times. No, I'm going to keep our team matches out of this. It's all going to be based on the arguments. I'm here to have fun, so let's go.
All right, and the loudmouth Caleb Coho, thank you for jumping in and waking up 20 minutes ago to judge with me. How are you feeling, and how do you feel about this match?
I feel outstanding, dehydrated, and completely in the right frame of mind to listen to these judges. But I will do my best to listen to the arguments and do my best job at judging this one.
Perfect. All right, we'll go to the competitors real fast. Brian, I see you all over the place. How are you feeling about getting into the debate league?
I thought I should give it a try. Just, I haven't really done debating anywhere, so I thought I'd do it here. I'm passionate about movies, can have some fun. And James, don't feel too bad about your Orioles. I live in Cubs country. We waited like 100 years, so you'll get a win eventually.
Fair enough. And Michael, thank you for joining us. Again, this will be your first debate. How are you feeling going into it, and are you excited for it?
I am excited for this, yes. I think this is, I've obviously done the trivia bit. This is obviously a little bit different, so hopefully see how I fare this compared to the trivia's usually a bit all over the place, so hopefully this will not be as all over the place. It probably will be, knowing me. We'll see.
So how this debate will work, it will be 3 main rounds of prep, 1 minute opening, 1 minute closing, 5 minutes of free form. You have a minute extension if you would like to add it. Just tell me before the match starts. And then if you guys are not, if you guys are winning at that point, or if there's a deciding, you can knock out by 3. There will be 2 speed round questions if one of you guys split it. So we'll go right into the first question. And this is best Sandra Bullock performance. And I'm going to start with Michael. Brian Michaels.
All right, so Sandra Bullock performances. I could easily have gone with like the most dramatic performance or the most critically acclaimed, but I decided to go with a performance that not only marked her breakthrough, but kind of grabbed everyone's attention and showed the world what she could do. And that is as Annie Porter in the movie Speed. An unconventional pick when you're talking about a best performance, but I believe that really showed what she could do. I mean, ever since then, she's gone on to do comedies and dramas and actions and thrillers and all these kind of things. But in this role, kind of embodied all of those genres and showed that she has the ability and the range to show a wide range of emotions and could be more than just a sidekick role. And I think that's her best performance.
Perfect. Stopping a little early. We'll see how it pays off. Michael Wood, it's your turn to start whenever you start speaking.
Okay. So I also could have gone with sort of the most dramatic or the most critically acclaimed, and I have. It's Gravity is Sandra Bullock's best performance, I believe. I think it shows sort of a level of depth which I don't think I've really seen from her in anything else. She does do fun roles, she does action roles, she does occasionally do dramatic roles, but I think Gravity is the one that has sort of the most nuance. It has the most commitment to it when you look at how she performs the role. And yeah, I just think it is the best showcase for what she is capable of.
All right, stopping about the same time, so no advantage was gained. 5 minutes free form. Whenever you start speaking, have at it.
Gravity showed what she was capable of, but only in the drama genre. It didn't show what she's capable of far beyond that. I mean, the Speed, she shows joy and compassion, fear, intelligence, panic, sadness, courage, all in one role. And she does all of this while sitting in the driver's seat of a bus. And if that doesn't show what good acting is, I don't know what is.
I think a lot of those things are in Gravity as well, though. She shows panic, courage, sort of despair, loneliness, and she does all of it while sort of sat in very confined spaces in space. I don't think there's a huge amount of difference. I think her performance in Speed is decent, I guess. Being British, I don't quite have the same reverence for that film as my esteemed American colleagues, but yeah, it's okay. She doesn't have a huge amount to do. She's kind of a damsel in distress for most of it. She sort of reacts to things.
Damsel in distress. The entire movie of Gravity is damsel in distress. It's just her getting into one thing after another, and then conveniently, something happens that gets her out of it. Like at one point, she hallucinates George Clooney to show up to tell her what button to push. I mean,
at one point
she's not.
At one point in Speed, she drives a bus over a like empty bridge space somehow implausibly. It's a really odd scene. In Speed, she's also out of situations with a bit of ridiculous ease, if you like. I think Gravity, you also have to bear in mind she gets a much more interesting subplot. I think that the reasons behind sort of her past being explored and everything, she gets those meatier things. I don't think she gets that. I think she's just.
I don't think the plot of the movie, though, gives whether or not she gives a great performance. I mean, Gravity seems to be a very one-note performance. It's her looking sullen or panicky the entire round.
I think what it does is it gives her more of a character to explore, and I think the ways in which she explores that character, what brings the performance out. Annie in Speed isn't a great. There's not a lot for her to do with the character, and she does okay with it. But
I disagree. I think it gave her plenty to do. It let her show not only. I mean, yes, it's an action movie. People think of those as very shallow, but within that, aside from not being the stereotypical like sidekick character, I mean, I think she has a strong female role. I think she conveyed all those emotions very well. I think that she stood out in a cast where she could have easily just been a throwaway role. I mean, this is the one that made her a star. She went on to be a star after this movie, and there's a reason, because the world took note.
I don't know if she does entirely stand out in that film. I think, I don't. Again, it's a decent performance. Does she really do any better than anyone else in that film? In Gravity, she is the film. She carries that film. Clooney's in it a bit, but he's whatever in it. I think Bullock is, that's a film she carries, yet alone sort of steals. That's entirely her and what she brings to it, with that depth, that nuance, that sort of mix of despair and courage and everything.
But I don't think screen time equals good performance. I mean, yes, she carries the entire movie by herself. I think in a movie where she's the only real actress, she's, like I said, Clooney's in a little bit, but in a movie where she's the really only actor or actress in this movie, she is overshadowed by the technical achievements. Is what made that movie so good. People were impressed by the 3D and by the portrayal of weightlessness and by the drama that the script. But I don't think her performance was what made that film what it was.
I'm not talking about screen time. I mean, Gravity's an hour and a half, and she's not in Speed until after the half-hour mark. She's probably in Gravity more than she's in Speed, to be honest.
She's in Speed after the very first scene. After the elevator scene, it's her.
But the elevator scene's quite long. That's that's almost an act of the film. So I think she does. I think she probably has at least very level screen time. So that's not really what I'm getting at. I think I'm generally talking about what, a film like that where it's so much one person in it. It has to be someone who can make the film worth seeing, and I think she does beyond that. I think she really excels and almost makes the film better in a way. Because if you got someone who wasn't capable for that role, it wouldn't would the film be worth seeing? Really,
I don't think
You
she
know,
made a
it's-
bad
it's
performance. I
worth
thought it was a good performance. I just didn't think it was her best because it only showed one dimension of her. I think that she had so much more to offer, and that a role like Speed lets her show the world that she has a lot more in every genre that she can portray.
But does she do any of it that, is any of it that sort of next level in Speed? I think it's mostly dramatic performance, but it's nuanced within drama. There's,
Time.
like I said, those layers of.
All right. Michael Wood, 1 minute whenever you start speaking.
In conclusion, I think Gravity is Sandra Bullock's best performance. I think it allows her to carry a film by herself. I believe that she does that and therefore makes the movie better. I don't think you can make the same argument with her making Speed better. I just don't think she quite ever gets enough to do. I think there's enough layers in her performance in Gravity with the despair, panic, and yeah, I think she just brings so much more to that film with that character on her own.
All right. Ending a little early. Fine with me. Brian, 1 minute whenever you start speaking.
Gravity is a good movie, and Sandra Bullock actually does a good job in it. But I think that her best performance doesn't necessarily mean her most dramatic. In a role, I think her best performance would be the role when she most embodied the character and effectively conveyed who that character is. I mean, she made you believe in this character. And in the end, that's what a great performance is all about. You don't need the most Oscar bait moments. You don't need the best crying scenes. You don't need the most dramatic. You just need to be able to best portray a character and make the world believe in that character. And I think that in Speed, Sandra Bullock made you feel what the situation the character was in, and feel like you were there with her. And she really heightened the emotion of that movie that could otherwise have been very shallow.
Fantastic. Okay, well, we're going to start with James. James, who do you have and why?
I think both gave pretty good arguments here, but I'm leaning more towards Brian. I think he had a lot better counters, even though I think that Gravity is probably a better performance in my mind. I think his argument for Speed was good, that it's a more nuanced character. It's not just one note, and she was overshadowed by the technical achievement.
Okay. Caleb, who do you got and why?
For all the same reasons that James went with Brian, I do go with Brian. Michael never really countered those hits on Gravity as effectively as Brian was able to counter the hits on Speed, so I go with Brian.
Okay, so Brian takes the first point. So we're going to go to the next movie. Next question. Pitch a new MCU Wolverine film. And Michael, we're going to start with you.
Okay, so the MCU isn't great. It needs to be freshened up a bit. I think a Wolverine movie needs to be completely different to anything we've seen in there before. That's why I am going back to Wolverine's origins as a character that fought in World War One, and I'd like to see a Marvel War film. I think that would be a really interesting take on the character to show his time and do something completely different to what I've seen in the MCU. They need to bring back this. There's a fear they're losing R-rated movies due to the Fox-Disney merger. This would be a great opportunity for them to try something different and show they are still committed to a wider breadth of film. And I am happy to go into some more details later in terms of who will be making the film and be in the film. But that is the core of my pitch. I want to see something radically different.
All right, time. Perfect. Brian, pitch us the Wolverine movie.
All right. Wolverine's first appearance in the comics was in The Incredible Hulk, in a classic match of Wolverine versus Hulk. But Fox didn't have the rights to use Hulk in their X-Men movies, and Marvel didn't have the rights to use Wolverine in their movies. MCU guru Kevin Feige has explained that Marvel's licensing allows them to use Hulk in other people's movies, like in Thor or Avengers and that, but they can't make a Hulk solo movie. So basically, this is the story that they could never make until now, that they're getting Wolverine back. And as doing it as a Wolverine movie, they are able to give us the proper introduction to this character that we were never able to do, just like in the comics, until now. It's a classic story. You got to set it in Canada, as any proper introduction of Wolverine should be. And for my cast, I wanted to cast as Wolverine Travis Fimmel, who you might know as Ragnar Lothbrok from Vikings. I'll go into more reasons later, and my director is going to be Gareth Evans, who did The Raid 2, and Apostle, among other movies.
All right, perfect. I don't know about the Canada part, but we'll talk about that later. 5 minutes whenever you start speaking.
Incidentally, I think Brian and I are on similar lengths with some of this in terms of the Canadian parts and the Vikings parts, because the actor that I had for Wolverine is Alexander. I might get his surname wrong here. Alexander Ludwig or Ludwig. I'm not sure exactly. Also from Vikings, and also a young Canadian actor. I wanted to very specifically go for a Canadian actor to play a Canadian character. I thought that would be a good option, and I think he's shown he can do gritty and intense with Vikings. He's also done blockbusters before in the Hunger Games, so he's well versed with it. And I think, the Hulk's been in other MCU films. We always get these MCU crossovers. Iron Man's in Spider-Man, and Nick Fury's in Captain Marvel, and it just sounds like that's another Marvel film that we've seen 21 times before now, or whatever. I think I really do think this is an opportunity for them to really freshen up a fairly stale franchise.
But I don't think it's stale. I think it's stale because they haven't had anything new come to it. I think by bringing Wolverine in and introducing the way he should have been introduced originally, he's going to come in with a bang. He's going to make an impact, and the Hulk storyline is exactly what lets him do that. I think Travis Fimmel is perfect for it because he's got the animal intensity in his eyes. He can show that berserker rage like in Vikings, the physicality. You can see it in his eyes. And what's more important is he's old enough to look like he's lived that long, hard life, but he's young enough to play the role for years to come. Whereas Alexander Ludwig, who, by the way, played my character's son in Vikings, I think he's too young. In a group of already young X-Men, he's going to look like one of the youngest when he's supposed to be like the elder statesman there. He's older. He's lived longer. As far as my director, Gareth Evans, he obviously can do action. Anyone who's seen The Raid and The Raid 2 knows he can do intense action. But if you saw his movie on Netflix, The Apostle, he also shows that he can has beautiful cinematography, especially, and that was on like a Welsh island, I think. I think he'll make the landscapes of Canada look great, yet foreboding and dark, and that's everything that I think Wolverine movie needs to be.
The MCU's had quite a few new characters recently. In the last couple of years, they've brought in Captain Marvel, they've brought in Black Panther, Wasp. They're not shy of bringing in new characters. They have a fairly steady, Spider-Man's fairly new to it still. And, next year, this year as well, I'm not sure exactly what sort of role Mysterio is going to have, but they have new characters quite regularly. I don't think that's something that they need. In terms of intensity, the
question is they're bringing in a new character of Wolverine.
Yes, but what I'm saying, you're saying that the franchise isn't stale because they need new characters. I'm saying they've had new characters recently, and it isn't entirely working for them. There's still a feeling that it's a bit much of the same with some of these films. I think to do something different like this would alleviate those concerns. It would also alleviate these fears that they're not going to go down the path that Fox had with these Logans and Deadpools, that they're going to just Disney-fy these characters. I don't think they should do that. Certainly not with Wolverine, who I think needs that intensity. On your point with Ludwig being too young, I think they need to do a young Wolverine. I think this needs to be a Wolverine that can go for many more years. He can develop this weariness, this agedness that you're talking about as he goes on with the character.
But the problem is, if you know the character of Wolverine, he's already old. You want to put him in a World War I or World War II movie, and yet you're casting this guy who's young and who looks young and has the youth in his eyes. I mean, Travis Fimmel is only a couple of years older than Alexander Ludwig, but he looks like he's lived that long life. And in terms of your idea of the R-rated Wolverine, they can get away with doing R-rated like Deadpool and an R-rated Logan movie later on, like they did in X-Men. But I think can't introduce one of the most major characters in Marvel in an R-rated film that's going to block out a huge chunk of their audience. It's something you can maybe expand into later, like they did with Logan.
I think the idea of this is to get a new audience, almost, to bring in people who are disillusioned by the franchise and show that this isn't just marketed for a certain subsect of people. That the MCU can actually be a sort of generation-defining franchise for whichever generation you are. If you want the family film, if you want, it just gives them so many more options. And I think it's better to start with the R-rated to avoid this sort of clash of styles later on, where he appears in an R-rated film and people are like, oh, but he was telling kiddie jokes with Iron Man, the other film. It, like, they need, I think, to keep that consistency and start R with him.
5, 4.
I'll just let the clock run out here.
Okay, fine. Perfect.
I'm not going to get anything out in 5 seconds.
Okay. 1 minute. Brian, you start.
All right. So Wolverine is one of the most iconic Marvel characters, and he needs a proper introduction. And like I said, the classic story introduced him was Wolverine versus Hulk, and everyone wants to see that encounter. And now that they can finally do it, they should do it. It's the only way to introduce him, is the way he's supposed to be introduced, and you can make the character what he was supposed to be originally. I think Travis Fimmel is perfect for the role. He's shown what he can do in Vikings, and Warcraft was not a great movie, but he at least showed that he has the intensity and the action chops. And Gareth Evans, a great director who can do action, but he's also do drama. He can show emotion. He was actually attached at one point to the Deathstroke movie, so we know he's willing and able to do a superhero movie, and I think he's great for it. And I just think that putting Wolverine in R-rated movies would be the wrong move. I think he needs to be introduced this way, the way he was in the comics.
Okay, perfect. Michael, whenever you start speaking.
My film would be directed by Ari Aster of Hereditary. That's a very intense horror film. Let's get him a very intense war film. Keep that tone. I think this is a perfect thing to do. The MCU needs to be freshened up. This is an opportunity for them to do an R-rated film without losing comic mythology, because Wolverine has the World War I background. It gives them a chance to do something different and unique. We've had Hulk in Thor, we've had Iron Man in Spider-Man, we've got Fury in Captain Marvel. We don't need another soft crossover in a soft film, because they don't have the confidence to do something unique. Marvel need to start taking risks. An R-rated Wolverine is the best option. It's been proven to be the best option, because Logan was the best of the Wolverine trilogy, and it was R-rated. I think this is a golden opportunity for Marvel to do something exciting for a change, and I think, instead of just doing another crossover episode.
Time. Okay. But I will personally say that I think, Michael, you did win this. I just think that you hit him pretty hard, and there was not a lot of counter back on it, about the crossovers, about being stale, about being overdone. I think Brian did a good job. I just think that you handled the amount of time you had to explain it. The problem was a little bit from both sides. I didn't get a ton of movies. I got a ton of why MCU needs this, not why this movie would be fantastic. So I'm going to give it to Michael, but there's 3 judges for a reason. I'm going to go to James next. James, what do you got and why?
Yeah, actually, I completely agree with you, Cody. I think that both of them kind of got stuck on just kind of the overall MCU problem and not the Wolverine problem. But I think Michael was able to just succinctly say, why Wolverine needs an R-rated movie and why they don't need a soft sequel or an influx with cameos and things like that. Why it needs to be a Wolverine movie. So I'm going with Michael as well.
And Coho, what would you have said and why?
I actually would have gone with Brian. Brian kind of sold me on his story and how all the pieces of his film actually work together. Whereas with Michael's, I couldn't quite see exactly the picture he was painting for me, especially with the throw in of Ari Aster at the very end. That didn't really help clear things up for me. So I would have gone more towards Brian. But that's why we have 3 judges.
Exactly. Okay. So question number 3, we're tied up. So we will at least see the 1 speed round question. This one's going to be really interesting. Worst rom-com of the 2000s. We're going to start with Michael. 1 minute whenever you start speaking.
Okay, the worst rom-com of the 2000s is Jiggly, starring Ben Affleck. I don't really feel I need to say a huge amount more. I think this should be fairly self-evident. It's not a good film under any definition of the word film. It's not funny. It's not very endearing. It's kind of awful to look at. It's not good, Cody. It's not a good film.
Is that all you need to say?
That's it.
That's the best. I want that on the DVD box of Julie. Okay, Brian. 1 minute whenever you start talking.
Well, I have a response to that already, but I'm going to start by pitching my own. I could easily hinge my argument on just 2 words with my movie, Paris Hilton, because my movie is the hottie and the naughty. But I'm not going to stop with just Paris Hilton, because that's not where this ends by any means. Plenty of bad actors and actresses have been in decent movies, just like plenty of good actors and actresses have been in bad movies. But this one takes an actress who you already saw as vapid and talentless and actually managed to make you like her less. The very concept of the movie is basically how you can look past how ugly someone is to still fall in love with them. Yet the movie it contradicts its own concept by having the guy only start liking this other girl who's Paris' best friend after she starts to get makeovers and look prettier. And it's a pathetic movie. It's awful.
Whew.
Go ahead.
Man, I just heard a debate about Hottie the Naughty. So I've never heard of this movie beforehand. So this will be an interesting fight, and I've watched neither. So again, tell me why it's the worst rom-com of the 2000s. 5 minutes whenever you start speaking.
All right. So first of all, you said that the only thing that needs to be said about it is when you said the title, Jiggly. You should probably get the title right. It's pronounced Gigli. Otherwise, it tells me you don't even really know much about the movie. Gigli, first of all, I'm not even sure it qualifies as romantic comedy. It's got drama and crime, and it's got comedic elements and moments to it, but I don't think it's a romantic comedy. I mean, Gigli is actually the name of Ben Affleck's character, and I can't think of another romantic comedy that's named after the male character in the movie. Hottie and the Naughty
Hitch
is just bad from top to bottom. It's just bad from top to bottom. I mean, you get the makeup, there's the unibrow and the witch's wart and stuff to try and make somebody look comically ugly. And her physical appearance just gets better and better throughout the movie, which makes her more attractive to the guy. But it's not like you see her inner beauty like something like Shallow Hal. This movie makes Shallow Hal look deep and romantic by comparison.
Look, I'm in no ways qualified to explain why The Hottie and the Naughty is a good film, because it's not. However, let's talk about Giggly. I get what you're saying about is it really a romantic comedy? Yeah. Firstly, IMDb lists it as a romantic comedy, as comedy and romance in its subtitles. Secondly, it is a film about a romance which has comedic elements. It's pretty much the definition. And I'd argue that the fact that it has the extra crime drama motifs is kind of why it's such a bad romantic comedy. It just bogs it down further. It makes the film longer. It's 2 hours long. That's awful for a film that's this bad. And also, you could quite easily trick someone into watching this film by saying, oh, it's a really interesting crime drama with Ben Affleck. And then what you actually get is this awful, like, at least The Hottie and the Naughty does what it says on the tin. It gives you a story about a hottie and a naughty. A really bad story, admittedly, but, Jiggly could be used for evil,
See, that's just the problem, though, is Gigli. It's the kind of movie that, like, the Razzies grasp onto, where it's like the popular one to dump on. At the time, it was because of the whole Bennifer thing, but it's just the popular one to dump on. Gigli is not the worst movie ever made. It's not even the worst romantic comedy ever made. I mean, it's got good cast in it. Even Jennifer Lopez has been good in things like Out of Sight. And you've got Ben Affleck, of course, is good. It's got Christopher Walken, Al Pacino. It's directed by Martin Brest, who's done a lot of really good movies. So it has a good pedigree, and there are good scenes, and there is some talent to it. I defy you to find one redeeming quality about Hottie and the Naughty, from anyone in the cast to the story to anything about it. I mean, the movie has an albino stalker that goes after Paris Hilton, and like I said, the whole thing with the theme of the man falling in love with the naughty supposedly, but only because she got a makeup and became hot again. It's just the movie's like offensively bad. It fails as a romance. It fails as a comedy.
There might be a good cast in Googly, but they're not actually good in it. Ben Affleck's not good in that film. He might be a good actor elsewhere, but he's not in that film. As for challenging me to say a positive thing about the Hottie and Notty, it's not very long. It's only about 90 minutes compared to Googly.
That just means that it shortens your pain.
Yeah, that's good.
So you're saying it's so bad,
like Googly
extends so awful,
your pain.
You have to have a shorter time to it.
No, I'm saying the shorter time is good. You don't want to sit through a film that's bad, that's 2 hours long, which is what Higgly Doodles is. At least the Hottie and Notty can get over and done with quite quickly. It's in that sense, it's almost a fairly painless experience compared to Giggly Who's.
But I don't think that having to endure something a shorter time makes it a better movie. It just shows you that you wanted to get out of there faster because it was worse.
I'd probably have been out of Giggly by the 90-minute mark. Hottie and Notty, I could probably get through the whole thing. I'd bail out of Ben Affleck by that point, to be honest.
Yeah, but see, I disagree completely, because at least there are things about Gigli that makes it worth watching. I mean, I am not saying it's a good movie. It is not. But I think that there are enough good moments in it that makes it at least better than Hottie Notty.
Whew. Kind of hard in the line. 1 minute. Michael, you're going to start with Gahugala when you start speaking.
I cannot endure 2 hours of a film that is not only a bad rom-com, it's also a bad crime drama. It's bad at everything that it does. The Hottie and the Notty is also, quite bad by cinematic standards. But redeeming features of it, you can get it done quickly. It's the film that promised it's going to be. Where does it botch its execution? Sure. Does it lie about its execution? Then botch it completely. Then temporarily ruin a good actor's career, like Giggly does. No. Giggly's awful. I don't like it. I don't want to talk about it anymore. You can stop there, please.
Okay, thanks. Brian, 1 minute whenever you start.
All right. So Jiggly or Giggly or Googly or whatever you decide you want to call it in the end is not a good movie. But what's worse? A movie that's ambitious and expensive with big stars, it's got some good elements and talented people at least involved in it, and falls short, or a movie that's just inept on every level, from the concept to the casting to the script to the execution, and it's just horrible beginning to end. I think it's obviously the second one, which is the Hottie and the Naughty. IMDb, yes, it may list Giggly, Jiggly, Googly as having romance and comedy in addition to crime and drama, but that just because they have those in it does not make it a romantic comedy. And if you want to go by IMDb, let's look at their bottom 100, which lists mine at number 4 of the bottom 100, yours at number 19. Metacritic, mine's got a 7 out of 100, yours is 18. Rotten Tomatoes, mine is 4% positive reviews, yours is 6% positive reviews. I mean, everybody agrees. Hottie and the Naughty is just one of the worst movies ever made.
Time. Whew. Coho, who you got and why?
Brian threw haymakers and sold this film entirely. He had super strong capabilities of counters, and Michael never really was able to push back on that. He kind of tried to sell me more on didn't really sell me on the movie, more on name recognition and like the confusing like log line of the movie. Is all I really got out of it. So I'm going with Brian.
I'm going with Brian because I think Brian's actually seen the movie. I think Michael just Googled worst rom-coms of the 2000s and picked up Geely. I would almost give comedic elements of how many times you changed the name, but have to go with Brian. James, do you agree with me, Caleb, or were we wrong?
I was giving Brian the point as soon as he picked Hottie and the Naughty. But then actually listening to Michael's debate, I had to go with Michael because he was able to explain that it fails as a romance, it fails as a comedy, and that
was me.
I wrote both of them down. I had it on both sides.
Okay.
But he also proved that it was 2 hours long, and Brian shot himself in the foot saying that, hey, it shortens your pain if it's a short movie. Yeah, that's why the other one's worse, because it's a longer movie, so you have to sit through that longer. So I had to go with Michael, even though you guys disagree.
Fair enough. That's actually a good way of hearing it. That's why we have 3 judges. Okay, speed round. Speed round will work like this. Person to speak gets it.
It is 20 seconds for your opening, 15 for your rebuttal. Whoever says their answer first gets it. If you say it second, tough luck. You're stuck with the other option or whatever. If it's an either or, happens to be an either or. So the first question: who was the better rival to Rocky Balboa, Ivan Drago or Clubber Lang?
Ivan Drago.
Brian's got Drago. Michael has Lang. All right, so Brian, you spoke first. 20 seconds when you start talking.
All right, Ivan Drago was the better opponent for Rocky just because it was more personal, because he had killed basically his best friend and the person who had kind of helped him gain his fame in boxing, as well as putting country against country in U.S. versus Russia right in the middle of the 80s when that was like the big opposition, and that was the big story. This was kind of symbolism, and so it was worked on that level, and it also worked on the level of just being a personal story where he had revenge. He needed to get revenge for his friend.
All right, Michael, 20 seconds when you start talking.
I have no idea who Clever Lang is, so this is going to be a bit tricky for me to argue. Ivan Drago was in a film that was basically propaganda, though. I don't particularly like propaganda films. I know we're all a bit unsure about Russia at the moment, but, you know, does that really need to be conveyed in a 2-hour film with a weird talking robot? You know, Clever Lang, he's clever is in his name, so he must be a pretty good opponent.
Time. All right, over to Brian. 15 seconds for your rebuttal when you start talking.
Okay, it wasn't a 2-hour movie because I think it might have stretched into 90 minutes, a little more. It was, even that was 90 minutes of montages, but still, it was still the better movie. He's the better opponent because yes, it was propaganda, but it was in the middle of a time when that was the big deal. And even within that story of propaganda, they still managed a personal story where he had personal stakes of avenging his friend who this person had killed in the ring.
All right, time. We'll go over to Michael. 15 seconds for your closing argument.
Yeah, but it's propaganda that's aged quite poorly. You know, Clever Lang, his first name is Clever, his surname is Lang, like the acclaimed director Fritz Lang. I mean, come on.
All right, time.
James, I'm going to go to you first. Who you got and why?
Sent to me first.
Yeah.
Wonder where this is going.
Oh gosh, that was hard to watch. I apologize, Michael. But obviously, if you can't even get the guy's name right, it's Clubber Lang. Like, you beat somebody with a club.
Right. Okay. That would have changed the argument significantly.
I think if you wouldn't have admitted that you've never seen it and you just kind of ran with it, it would have been a better fight for you. But you did, and Brian just was punch after punch. I got to give it to Brian.
I have to give my vote to Ivan Drago just based on the argument of he pitched me Ivan Drago's rivalry, and Michael kind of stumbled over the name for about 45 seconds. So I do have to give it to Brian, and with that, Brian wins today's fight. I will wrap this up, close it out. I'll start with our loser to Michael. How did you feel about your fight today overall? Aside from that disappointing finish.
I still very much enjoy this format. I think these were not ideal questions for me. Cody very astutely pointed out that I've not seen Giggy. I've never seen the Hottie Nottie either, and I have no idea about the Rocky films. So this wasn't really my game. It was fun. I enjoy this. I enjoy talking about films, even the ones I haven't seen. Hopefully, if I can get a match in future, which with my record now of 0-1, I imagine I won't. But I'd love to do this again. This is a ton of fun, even when, Clever Lang just got to me.
Absolutely. Well, the powers that be will have to see what they can do, as I am not one of them, but I do hope to see you again in the future. You put up some good fights and made some good points, so hopefully we will see you back. Brian Michaels, you are the victor today. How do you feel now that you advanced to a 1-0 record?
I think I did pretty good. I mean, I'm pretty happy with my performance. Like I said, I'd never really done this kind of thing before, so it was new to me, and I'm glad I did a decent job. I was a little surprised because the one I felt most confident in was the round 2, the Wolverine pitch, and that's the round that I lost. That surprised me. I had a bunch of really good comebacks to his Ari Aster, but then he didn't drop that until the closing, so I wasn't able to get some of those hits in that I had already for him. But I enjoyed it. I look forward to another match. Michael was a good opponent. Like I said, he beat me on the one round I felt most confident in. So, yeah, that's how it went.
Absolutely. Well, I'm pretty sure we'll see you again now that you are technically undefeated here in the Roman Movie Battleground. Is there anyone you would like to debate next?
You know what? There's a guy sitting across from me there, James. I don't know. We just seem to have some kind of rivalry going, and I'd be fun to continue that. Or I don't know if Brandon's in this league too. I'll take him on too.
Awesome. So you're calling out your business casual buddies. So we'll see if we can make that happen. But with that's been Movie Battleground. I'll throw it back to Cody, who I believe is all cleared up now and can take this one home.
Yeah, so like, comment, subscribe to Movie Battleground. Again, this was Brian, this was James, this was Michael, this was me and Caleb.